Morning. All right. It is 9:30. My name is Mike Kelly. I'm the chairman of the board for the Johnson County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Welcome, everybody. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Here.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
I am here. All are present. Would you all mind joining me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance. All right. Thank you all very much, and thank you for joining us here today. If you all wouldn't mind joining me in checking that your cell phone or other noise-making device is turned on to silent, I'd appreciate it. I also recognize that we have a relatively full room today and some guests outside. If you do us the courtesy of just keeping the aisles clear from a safety perspective, we'd sure appreciate that. Obviously, if people have to get up and use the restroom, we completely understand. But in the interim, if you wouldn't mind helping keep the aisles clear, we'd sure appreciate that. Thank you. With that, I'm going to head to the dais for a proclamation, and I'd ask Ms. Claire Kanan to join me. National Preparedness Month is an important opportunity for every resident of Johnson County to prepare, whether it be their home, their business, or their community, for any type of emergency using 4 building blocks of emergency preparedness. Number 1, let's be informed. Number 2, make a plan. 3, build a kit. And 4, get involved. Our agencies across various levels of government, including here in Johnson County, are working to increase public activities to prepare for emergencies and to educate individuals on how we can take action. So we encourage all citizens of Johnson County to make preparedness a priority and work together to ensure that all individuals, all families, and all communities are prepared for disasters and emergencies of any type. We are proud to proclaim September 2023 as National Preparedness Month. I encourage all of our citizens and business to develop their own emergency preparedness plan, use those 4 universal building blocks, and work together toward creating a more prepared and therefore safer community. With that, I'd invite Ms. Kanan to provide some additional comments.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for your support of National Preparedness Month in Johnson County. As we all know too well, disasters and emergencies can happen at any time. We will never know when a disaster or emergency will hit Johnson County, but we can all take steps to mitigate the effects to our lives, property, and community by getting connected, having a plan, and gathering supplies. Throughout the month of September, Johnson County Emergency Management is partaking in the 30 Days, 30 Ways campaign on our social media platforms to boost personal resilience and preparedness for individuals of all ages. Every day, we will share a tip or activity to leave individuals better prepared for any disaster or emergency they may experience, while also pinpointing tools and resources, such as developing a preparedness plan, what supplies to include in a disaster response kit, and how to receive emergency alerts and warnings through mass notification systems such as Notify JOCO. Johnson County is committed to putting people first and reaching communities where they are. National Preparedness Month is a call to action to all parts of our community. By working together today, we can ensure that our families, households, and community are prepared for any disaster or emergency we encounter. Again, we appreciate your support of National Preparedness Month. Thank you.
Thank you. We have this proclamation for you. We're going to take a
Yeah.
photo. Appreciate you. Okay. We're going to prepare now for our general public comment portion of the agenda. This is for folks that would like to speak on items which do not later appear on the agenda. So if you want to speak on the budget, that's an item later on the agenda. This is a general public comment section. If you do happen to speak on any action item that's on the agenda, including the budget, you'll be asked to refrain during this general public comment session. When you do come to the dais, we ask you state your name and address. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. There's a clock that'll appear to assist you with that time limit. If you happen to go beyond that 2-minute time limit, I'll ask that you please conclude your comments. At this time, I'd ask the clerk to prepare us first for the virtual public comments. Thank you.
Chair, we are ready.
No notes from the record today, so we'll move straight into the business session, starting with the consent agenda. Commissioner Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Hanslick, second.
Moved by Allenbrand, seconded by Hanslick. Ask the clerk to call the roll on the consent agenda, please.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Aye, 7 votes in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That's correct.
Very good. On to the action agenda. We'll start with the resolutions from the various fire boards, starting with Consolidated Fire District Number 2. This is resolution number 07323, considering approving the budget for the fiscal year 2024 for Consolidated Fire District Number 2. We have Ted Clemens from Budget and Financial Planning and Chief Steve Chick. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Ted Clemens with the Budget Office. This item is the statutorily required approval of Consolidated Fire District Number 2's 2024 budget by the Board of County Commissioners. Consolidated Fire District Number 2's board previously approved their budget. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a PowerPoint. And there's a PowerPoint we'll pull up, and I'll go through the slides, one slide. Yeah, I need to raise this. How do I raise this? Sorry, that's the wrong PowerPoint. That's fine. It should be attached to the item.
Number 7.
There we go.
Okay. Next. So this is their financial information, and so with Consolidated Fire District Number 2, their expenditures go up 14.6%. However, when we include reserves, that's 7.89%, and that chart includes reserves. And then their ad valorem goes up 5.83%. And lastly, their mill levy is dropped by about 4.5%. And so if there's any financial questions for me, I'm available, but I'm going to turn it over to the chief to provide the rest of the data.
Not quite as tall as that. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for having us here this morning. I came to talk to you about the budget for Consolidated Fire District Number 2, 72 employees that serve the 8 cities in northeast Johnson County. I bring to you what I feel is good news this year. Nobody wants to pay more in taxes, but I think that I have a number of points here that will support what our budget brings, and I'm comfortable in asking for your approval on our budget today. So first of all, CFD2, we have a really involved and engaged board. We interact with them on mission-critical topics. We talk about health and employment and raw costs in running the fire district, and we're held accountable for many of our costs on a monthly basis. But also, our budget is combed through by our board on an annual basis, and they make sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayers' dollars. One thing I'd like to point out is 80% of our budget is related to employment, the first responders that are out there running calls in the community and taking care of the public. And so when that much of the budget is related to people, it's very hard in a climate where we've had inflation and salaries going up to take a budget down. And so if we boil it all down, we've got to retain good and talented and dedicated folks, and that's one of the things that causes our budget to go up. But I would also tell you that keeping that workforce is partly about culture, and we have a fantastic culture, and I'll talk to you a little bit in this presentation about that. So we demonstrate collaboration throughout the county. This is something that I've talked about in the past with Commissioner Ashcraft and other commissioners. We train together with other organizations. We have a robust program with Leawood Fire, Shawnee Fire, MedAct, our police departments, And we are looking at additional opportunities with the new fire chief at Overland Park Fire Department, Alan Long, this year. And so we're excited about that continued collaboration. And when we train together, we get better together. We also use the taxpayers' dollars effectively because both of us get good out of one training session. So lots of good comes out of that. We're working on a bunch of progressive ideas, but one idea we're working on right now, we're getting ready to meet again with Olathe Fire. The two of us are the county response for trench collapse and structural collapse. And we're working on talking about how we can make sure that we don't duplicate efforts and supplies and tools and things like that, and that we can serve the same mission with a financial and an operational viewpoint that is combined versus individual organizations. So it's all great news there. Number of years ago, about 3 years ago, we built a first response advanced life support program. And what that means is that we have paramedics on our fire trucks going to the homes of our residents and providing amazing care at the paramedic and advanced life support level. The good thing about that is that Johnson County MedAct, our partner, who we value highly, is stretched thin throughout the county. They only have so many ambulances in the county, but we have our fire trucks in the community of every resident in our district. And so what we're able to do is get a paramedic on the doorstep and in the home of a resident within about 5 minutes and 20 seconds from the time they call 911. It's huge. It is huge, and we're saving lives, and we're doing good things with that. And we had a 5-year goal to put that in place, and we're 3 years in, and we've met that goal, and we're already serving the community to a much higher level than we were before we started. So, thank you. So here's some challenges and considerations. Things that I've talked about with Commissioner O'Hara in the past and that she's passionate about are TIFs. TIFs are a problem for us. I'm going to be honest with you. I've got $70 million worth of property in my district that we don't collect any taxes on, and the properties that are either tax exempt or covered by a TIF account for a little over 10% of our call volume right now. So somebody's got to pay for that, and it is a challenge. So I would tell you that my board has encouraged me to be creative with how we close that gap. We've met with our cities. Fairway has engaged with us, and with the new property they're building in Fairway, they brought us to the table and discussed how we can make sure that we continue to get some benefit out of an arrangement like that. And other cities like Roland Park are looking at reduced total values in TIFs so that we still get some tax revenues. So those are good things that are happening within the district, and we've placed ourselves right in the middle of those conversations to make sure we're taking care of the taxpayers, the individual and existing taxpayers that get impacted by that. And so furthermore, we understand that TIFs are good for attracting development. We also welcome discussion with our legislators and our commissioners about, and our cities, about how we can protect the funding for the things that have to happen, like first response. I'll move on to our facilities. CFD2 has one 4-year-old station which serves Prairie Village as a primary response district. We're very fortunate we were able to build a good station, and that'll be a long-term facility. It's built with a 50 or 75-year life in mind, and it's fantastic. Seeking approval this year for renovations beginning in 2024 for our Station 2 at 63rd and Mission Road. That's a 25-year-old facility that when it was built was never really the size that it needed to be to offer the services we do. And so we've got some renovations and expansion to make there. We've saved the money for that, okay? And one of the things that when you look at my budget and you look at those bar graphs, it says we're going to spend almost $20 million this year. That's because we include our reserves in that to be transparent. Our budget's about $11 million and change, but we've booked spending our reserves because we're gonna spend some of the money that we've put in reserve, and we're not financing the renovations of this fire station. We're gonna pay for them, and then we don't have bond payments for the next 10 or 20 years. We have plans for Station 21, which is a 50-year-old facility in Mission on Martway across from the 6,000 Lamar County building. Probably 25, 26, we'll begin discussing renovations on that 50-year-old building. And again, we will plan for those renovations ahead of time, and we will hope not to seek any bond issuance in order to pay for those things. CFD2 recognizes the challenges in the workplace and the recruiting challenges that we have. Let's be frank. The number of people who want to go into public service are down. It's not a thankful job all the time. It's not a safe job all the time. And some people are not excited about getting into public service. So we've pioneered a firefighter intern program that addresses the challenges of our limited candidate pools. And a couple of things it's done for us, while it's not a diversity program, it's given us access to female and minority firefighter applicants that we weren't able to secure before, because when they get in the marketplace, those people are highly valued by employers. We choose people based on their fit with our organization and their ability to do the job. I don't care whether they're a man or a woman or what their background is, but everybody has a fair shake at CFD2. And we just hired one of our interns who went through our program. We helped her get her certifications, and next Monday she'll start the academy with Consolidated Fire District 2, and we're proud of that. CFD2 is going to continue to evaluate our staffing over the long term. One thing that the National Fire Protection Agency says is that all engine companies and aerial companies shall provide service with a minimum of 4 firefighter and EMS trained people on each of those units. We can only meet a minimum of 3 with our current staffing needs. So we'll work with our board over the next couple of years to talk about what the reality is of being able to meet those standards, and if that's something that we can move toward to put us in line with the NFPA standards and the best practices. So here's the things that tell the story for you. We're fiscally responsible. Again, we received the highest possible rating awarded for our annual audit this year. We take our stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars very, very seriously, and I'm proud of what my staff has done, and I'm proud of what they continue to do, and we will do in the future. Employee turnover is extremely low at CFD2. I talked about culture, and culture is a word that's very, very important. People who work at our organization want to work at our organization, and there are other organizations who might pay them a little better, but the truth of the matter is they like ours, and they like the community we serve. Our turnover rate is 1.38%. That's unbelievable. I'm proud of the people that serve with me. I'm proud of the work that we do, and I'm proud of our board for recognizing their value and continuing to support them. Those low turnover numbers help us control our costs. Turnover is expensive, training new people and onboarding is expensive, and we keep experienced professionals on the streets serving our communities every day. CFD2 is dedicated to developing our people. Nobody gets to retire on duty. We've exceeded our goals again this year with nearly 12,000 hours of training in our organization, and our calendar is very, very full. We keep it full. Firefighters love being challenged to fit that in when they're trying to run calls and everything else. Obviously, our first priority is the response to the community, but our second priority is making sure we remain ready for those responses through training. We remain an ISO Class 1. There's 50,000 plus fire districts or fire departments in the United States. We are one of 411 in the United States that are ISO Class 1. We're very proud of that. What that means is that our business owners and our property owners enjoy the lowest possible property insurance because we have our ISO Class 1 rating. CFD2 proposes a mill levy for the 4th year in a row that is decreasing. In total, over the last 4 years, when you take this year into account, we've dropped 1.745 mills. That's a huge reduction. Now, I'm also a realist, and I know that the mill is only part of the equation. So let's talk about ad valorem taxes. This is a report that I received from the county last week, and what I'd like to share with you is that from 2018 to 2022, which are our closed budget years, we've been in a climate where we've had 22.6% consumer price index increase. CFD2 has only increased our budget by 15.4% during those 5 years. I think that's a very clear picture of financial responsibility. I think it says that we take care of the taxpayers' dollars and we serve them very efficiently, and I'm proud of that. We don't get public safety sales tax. It's something I talk about regularly, and my partners in the fire districts out here are at the same disadvantage. When the public safety sales taxes were passed in Kansas, they left the fire districts out. We don't get any of that money. So all of our cities, all of our, a lot of the other county organizations get public safety sales tax, but we don't enjoy that. So my budget has to be based on mill levy. We're one of the few fire districts that has a revenue generating machine within our organization. We have a cell tower at Station 22 that brings about $200,000 to $225,000 a year in revenue. It's not as much as I'd love it to be, but it's something, and we're contributing back to the budget with that. So over the last 5 years, we've seen nearly 34% increase, and this year, if you count this year, we've seen nearly 38% increase in property values, yet we've only increased about 15-16% in what we're collecting. So half of that money that would have been collected in ad valorem taxes has gone back in the pocket of our taxpayers through the district. So our 5-year history shows that CFD2's lowered our mill and ad valorem taxes proportionally every year. What I want to caution everybody is that this year, one of the things we included in our budget is we had some excess reserve money in our general fund reserve. We had some reserves built up for uncertainties related to the dark store theory and some of those lawsuits. We've put that money back in the budget to spend this year. We're not keeping that money in reserve, and we're putting that money back in the taxpayer's pocket. But I don't want to get beat up next year if our property values don't increase enough to make sure that our budget remains at the level that we need to be funded. Our mill levy may move a little bit, and that's just responsible management of the taxpayers' dollars, putting it in their pocket when it needs to be put there. So I'll close with several statements. First of all, to Commissioner O'Hara's point, TIFs are difficult for us. We're going to work hard to continue to figure out how to make sure that we get properly funded and that doesn't go on the backs of the existing homeowners and business owners. Responsible stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars is at the core of what we do, as is evidenced in our performance over the last 5 years. I'm not asking you to believe me. You can look at the reports that the county can generate for you. There is no other taxing subdivision in Northeast Johnson County that has lowered their mill levy more or collected less of an increase in ad valorem taxes than CFD2. Period. Remaining relevant in today's emergency services employment climate is tenuous at best. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is the fact that when I go hire a firefighter EMT, they have to go to school for well over a year and a half, sometimes close to 2 years. They have to have 4 certifications in fire and hazmat. They have to have EMT or paramedic as a minimum requirement to get hired with us. That's the minimum standard. I'm paying those people $50,470 a year to come out and serve the public and risk their lives in the middle of the night and in storms and be away from their families on birthdays and things like that. We programmed a 6.5% increase into our budget this year. It still leaves a gap if you look at the last 5 or 6 years. And if we were to track what consumer price index has done to the economy, and we look at what salaries have done in my organization, we still have a gap. We're not paying our people enough to keep up with the consumer price index. I feel very comfortable in saying that 6.5% is not enough, but it's responsible this year. So in saying so, I would remind everybody that we've been very responsible with the budget. We're very proud of what we're doing. I've addressed concerns that have been brought here in the past, and so I ask for all of your vote of approval for our budget.
Well, Chief, thank you very much. A lot of great things there, and glad to continue to see you be successful building on a legacy there of CFD2. It's nice that we've had continued chiefs that have believed in the foundation of the organization, the same ideals, and I think you're doing a fantastic job and appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with you, albeit in a little bit of a different role here. So a couple of quick things. First of all, I appreciate that we've had this conversation when we talk about TIF districts and we talk about how you can be part of the conversation. I think that's the key.
Yes.
Is making sure that we have the conversation with the entity. And I'm glad we're able to do that and make sure that fire can be considered as we can balance the opportunities of economic development that would bring for our community, as well as the impact on your organization. So thank you for those continued conversations. You mentioned low turnover. I think that's awesome. I think part of that is you have a culture within the organization, the kind of people that you recruit, but also you mentioned paying your people. I'm glad you got that 6% bump this year. Encourage you to continue that and make sure that these individuals who do risk their lives are compensated accordingly. So thank you for that. And the only other note I wanted to make is you talked about responsible management. It's not necessarily about the number. It's about the value of the service that we provide and being very honest about what it costs to be able to run the fire district. And when you build that trust, it doesn't matter if, you know, mill didn't go down as much as you would have liked, or if you have to keep it flat, but that response management says, we're going to get the resources we need to provide this level of service that people have come to expect in CFD too. So you do a nice job of that. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fast?
Yes, I really appreciate the work of the fire board. I appoint the fire board. I will tell you, I've never seen a fire board who wants to serve 20, 30 years. They love going to his meetings. And when I say you've been on there 30 years, I have other people who want to serve. I mean, and they meet monthly too. And that's how much they appreciate you. I would like you to highlight, I mean, it's been a rough summer, the storms, if you talk about that, preventing, a lot of electrical fires. Then the officers, that we lost, the officer, and then I heard that you had, some of the firefighters had somebody pulled a gun on them in an apartment. So it is not an easy job.
No, thank you for the opportunity to speak about that, Commissioner, and thank you for your continued support. First of all, I'd like to say that the storms that we saw this summer, which everybody's familiar with, right? It was those were challenges for everybody in our communities, but first response agencies, our partners at the police department, our partners in public, the public service in the cities and public works, and there was so many people involved in that. But I will tell you a couple of quick statistics, and that is that a normal day for our fire district is about somewhere 16 to 20 emergency calls for service. So we're out going to try and solve an emergent situation for the public. During a 24-hour period on July 14th, we ran 196 calls for service. And what that says to you is that there are times where the demand is literally almost overwhelming, and especially in times of storms. But one of the discussions that has come up over a number of years is the discussion of consolidation and how do you effectively manage all the money in all the fire districts and all the fire departments and all those things. And what I'd point out to you is that in situations like that, we don't stand to reduce staffing or our fire truck, number of fire trucks, things like that, very much, because the reality is we need those. On July 14th, there was a period of time where we were called upon to respond in this county to a building fire, and we were not able to have a fire truck free at the time the call came in because every fire truck in the county was on a call. And so what I'd tell you is that funding first response and making sure that we understand that we work collaboratively. I had units from every fire organization in this county in Northeast Johnson County helping us with those 196 calls, which I appreciate. Northwest Consolidated, District 1 down in Gardner, they had fire trucks helping me make sure that the community was served. That's collaboration. And so when we do those things, they don't get noticed, but I think it's time to point it out and make sure that you all understand that we're talking on the phone, we're calling each other on the radio, we're trying to make things happen, and we do it quite effectively without anybody knowing. So two other things I'll point out. Recently, we lost a police officer in Fairway, and that was a horrible situation. We still feel very much for our partners at Fairway PD and Chief Thurlow. Our partnerships with our police departments, Prairie Village and Mission and Roland Park and Westwood and Fairway and the Sheriff's Department, they're really important to us. We responded and took care of Officer Oswald. We were the first people on scene medically to take care of him when he went down. And our partnership with MedAct allows us to do amazing things in this county. We were able to get there and stabilize the situation. As soon as MedAct rolled in, we were able to get that police officer the best care possible and give him the best chance of survival as we took him to the trauma center. And that takes a toll on people. It is hard on people. And I want to remind you that mental health of my people is just as important as mental health of the community, because what they see is exponential to what the community sees on a daily basis. And so we have a peer support program that's very effective, and we take care of our people mentally, and we get them counseling when it's necessary, and we do debriefs, and we talk about those difficult calls. And those are the things that we've made a priority in our community. Lastly, our job is not safe all the time. We run into burning buildings when other people are running out, just like my partners at the other fire districts and the city fire departments. But other things happen to us too. And when we walk out of an apartment complex after a medical call at 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody high on drugs puts a gun in the face of one of my paramedics, which did happen last month, in July, that's not a safe environment. okay? So I ask you all to remember that PD, our partners at MedAct, all of our law enforcement partners and our fire folks out there in the county, we work hard and we're quite proud to serve the community, but there are significant risks that come with it.
Commissioner Hansley.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all that you and your staff do to keep our community safe, and also to be cost-efficient and cost-effective. Two things, though, that I heard that you said that I'd appreciate your talking about a little bit more. I heard you say that there are times when there aren't enough trucks available, and also that you're not currently meeting the staffing minimums for 4. Can you talk about what the plans are to address those issues?
Sure. So the two things, and thank you very much for your question, Commissioner Hansley. Two things. First of all, I wanted to showcase for you when I tell you about the county running out of fire trucks that is a real possibility, okay? The reality is that's not a daily occurrence, although we do have days where the volume is extremely high. And I can tell you for sure, there are days where in this county we run out of ambulances much more frequently than we do fire trucks. So I will tell you that if you remember that every time an ambulance goes somewhere in my district, we send a fire truck because many times we can get there in 5 minutes or 5 minutes and 20 seconds, where depending on where MedAct is, if they're there, then they get there just as quick as we do. But if they're busy, they may not get there for up to 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, which is fine because that's why we have a tiered response system. And that partnership works. But the instance that I showcase with running out of fire trucks for the entire county is obviously what we call an overload situation. And that means that is a very, very, very high volume. It does not happen on a routine basis. It happens several times a year. But this is the first time I'm aware of that we literally did not have another fire truck to dispatch. And so we just have to keep an eye on that. And I met with the Johnson County Fire and Emergency Services Chiefs Association yesterday. We meet every month to talk about these challenges, and we're all taking a good look at the data to make sure that we manage this effectively for the future. So, and then your other question.
About the staffing.
Staffing. So every one of us has a challenge with staffing in this county, and the challenge is that we're having a hard time getting qualified applicants to fill the number of seats we have right now. But the NFPA does recommend 4-person staffing on every frontline apparatus, and we're going to have dialogue about what that means. I don't think it's realistic for anybody to say, hey, we're going to hire another firefighter for every truck for every shift right away. I think that that's a phased approach over time that would allow us to bring the staffing up to the NFPA standard, and I think that we have to do that judiciously so that we don't put a huge impact on the taxpayers all at once.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Chief, thank you for this update. I was extremely impressed with the 1.38% turnover. Congratulations. That's just absolutely amazing. And I think you do know that my son-in-law is a sheriff's deputy, so the men and women that are on the front line in public safety is near and dear to my heart. Yeah. And how you have managed through this and using your reserves to improve the fire stations, I mean, this fiscal responsibility is to be commended, and unfortunately is not emulated enough. I did have one question. What was the value increase in your fire district area, average?
This year, I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. If you can.
I forgot the raw numbers.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
All right.
I'd be happy to take a look at it.
Yeah, if you could just get that back to me, I much appreciate it.
So it's about 11% is what we've seen in property value increase.
Okay, so it's pretty much the average of the county.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right there.
And if it's something different, just get back with me and let me know.
Happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, very good presentation. I appreciate it very much. A couple of comments. Excuse me. First of all, I want to thank county staff and the departments. This year, there was what I would call a unified approach in terms of kind of outlining the metrics, your performance metrics. I did talk to all the chiefs. The interesting thing is there's a little bit of disagreement between how you parse those numbers and what they mean.
Sure.
And that's understandable as that evolves. So I just encourage budget staff to continue that effort. I think it helps us understand kind of the comparables between what the counties do, the county departments do, and how they perform. So I appreciate that very much. I also I was happy with Mr. Chairman. We talked. It was yesterday, I believe, and we talked a little bit about the TIF issue. And I very much appreciate you and your board's attempts to work with Fairway in particular, probably all your jurisdictions at some point in time, to try to address the inherent impact that TIFs have on other governments, the governments that do not issue those TIFs. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciated your comment. I would just reinforce, though, not just fire departments, but also the county. If we're not at the table in these negotiations, we're on the table. The chief offers just a perfect example, but it has the same impact on county services, maybe to a lesser degree because we are a bigger piece of pie, but it's cumulative because we have more jurisdictions than any fire department. So I appreciate that. I share Commissioner O'Hara's sensitivity to TIFs, and will continue to do so. And every time I hear comments like that from the chief or the other chiefs, it just reinforces my concern that we need to be at the table, because I've found many city administrators are more than willing to talk about it and try to work it out, but we have to get through that political process, and that's just the reality. And that's neither good or bad, but it is a challenge. So having said that, a couple of elaborations, if I could ask you. What is your reserve policy?
So we have reserves in a couple of different areas, okay? We have employee benefit reserves, and what that does is it makes sure that the encumbered expenses that the district has could be paid out if we cease doing business, right? So like we've got sick leave and things like that in reserve. We have operating reserves that will allow us to run for several months if we didn't receive our money from the government. And though we haven't had that problem, it was one of those questions that came up when the pandemic arose. Is like, hey, how we like if nobody's in the office, I don't get paid, right? So. And so we've got our general fund reserves, we've got employee benefit fund reserves, and then we have our equipment and capital reserves. And so we plan ahead for our fire engines and our large purchases, and we put that money in a reserve account, and we don't borrow money to go buy equipment. We put that money in an account, and that's why our reserves look like they're so high. But that's what's different about what I'm doing, is that I don't have to spend the $50,000 in legal fees to issue a bond and then pay interest on that money to pay for a fire truck. We plan for that money every year as a line item in our budget, and we put that away in reserve, and then we go pay cash for those fire engines. We invest that money in the meantime, or we take a prepayment discount, whichever is larger, right? We do the financial evaluation on that. But what that does is allows us to spend dollar for dollar on purchases, and actually it makes it cheaper because we're spending some dollars we put away yesterday that haven't yet inflated, right? Instead of paying the fees to issue a bond and then paying interest on that money later, so it saves exponentially for the taxpayer.
So do you actually have written policies in terms of the size of those reserves?
Yeah, so we try to follow, as a fire district, we try to follow some of the same practices that the county commission would follow on our general fund reserves. We try to keep, and the truth is that when we did our last fire station, we did not get the highest bond rating when we issued a bond for that. The threshold in that for me, when you start talking about a $6 or $6.5 million fire station, it's hard to put that much money way ahead of time, right? And so we got a very high rating on our bond, but we didn't get the highest rating because they said our reserves weren't sufficient. They really would have liked us to have, 28 or 30% in general fund reserves, and we were down around the 20 to 25% mark. And so we shoot for 25 to 30% in our general fund reserves, and that's our policy, is we try to keep it at that level.
Very good. And what is your overhead to operations ratio in terms of annual expenditures?
So what I can tell you is this. We put about 700 and some thousand in change. It fluctuates because we have an inflation factor in our line item for our reserves. But we put about 700,000 a year away to maintain our capital account. We spend a little bit over $1 million a year for all the stuff that it takes to run the fire district, right? Like paying the gas bill, paying the electricity, paying for health screenings, so that literally is 10% of our budget, and the rest of the budget is made up of employment expenses and direct costs with delivering service.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Allen Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple different thank you for your service and everything you're doing, and it's very obvious that you're very excited and have great leadership skills. So I guess one thing that is a little bit concerning to me is that the amount of openings and pay step plan for your firefighters.
Okay.
Because I know you're very conscientious about your budget, but then you know what's going to happen 2 years from now as everybody else is on that step plan.
Right.
You're probably already thinking about it, but that would be concerning in the future. Because I know several of the fire departments just trying to play catch up, to fill those positions. I know it's a little bit different than some of our other county because you're established. And I had a business over there. I never received any TIF dollars or any incentives for building. But I do realize that some of those early TIFs of being in that area, there was no pilot programs, and I'm sure it is a struggle. And one thing I think that you have is a positive, and I wish some of the other fire districts are probably sitting here. I wish we had that, your satellite, that you have some revenue coming in from. But again, I really appreciate everything you're doing, and I appreciate your conscientious on this budget. So my only concern is I hope that the firefighters have a step program because, as you say, they work hard, and it's always a struggle to get caught up, with that. And so, but I do realize you are an established fire station, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank
If I
you
could
for your
address that, two things. We're just about to be in existence for 70 years. We do have a STEP program that's defined for our firefighters, so they progress through that program as they grow in their career, and that is very effective at retaining people, obviously, which is why one of the reasons, along with our culture, that we don't have any turnover. But you're right, maintaining, being judicious and responsible with the taxpayers' dollars, yet maintaining increases that are sufficient enough to take care of people all the way through that STEP program. We apply those throughout our pay scales. When we do a 6.5% raise, we don't differentiate unless there's compression that we need to correct. We don't differentiate between levels. Everybody gets some of the pie, and so we really try and keep it fair that way.
Thank you.
I would also tell you that when we're simply trying to follow suit and stay within reasonable numbers, and the county commission, and justly so, I would never criticize you for this, saw to raise the starting salary for our sheriff's officers, and has seen to raise the salaries for MEDACT in both the EMT and the paramedic levels. And we're just trying to keep up with that, because when MEDACT can hire a new paramedic for $62,000 a year, but I only pay a paramedic with more certifications in fire, $56,000 to start, it makes it very hard. So we're just trying to keep up without blowing out the top.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you for your presentation, Chief. It's been excellent, and this discussion's been excellent. I'm glad to hear you speak a little bit about the importance of bond rating. Bond rating is extremely important. Sometimes people don't realize that. That not only saves you thousands of dollars, but countywide, it saves millions of dollars. So having those reserves is extremely important to maintain that highest bond rating that you can. You also talked about personnel, and I know with your reserves, personnel is still going to have needs. You need to try your best to meet requirements.
Right.
And again, as you said, we're not going to solve those issues overnight, but we need to make progress. And that's what I think we all have discussed many, many times, continuing to make progress to meet those needs, whether it's personnel, whether it's trucks, whether it's ambulances. Last week, we had another department that was the same situation. Personnel was very important. We weren't going to be able to solve meeting their requirements overnight, but we need to be able to show progress. And I think that's the important thing that we try to do, we continue to do, and I commend you and all of our fire departments for the work that they do in presenting these types of budgets before us. And again, your work has been superb. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Fast?
Yeah, just one point about removing fire out of the TIF. School districts are removed from fire, not all of the school, there's like 3 different school district components, but I think that is something we should look at during our legislative agenda. I know they're looking at it for their legislative agenda. Okay, I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 budgets for Consolidated Fire District Number 2 and to adopt resolution number 073-23.
Allenbrand, second.
Moved by Commissioner Fast, seconded by Commissioner Allenbrand. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, again, thank you for your presentation and visiting with me yesterday. And I think you offer a good faith presentation of your services. I will suggest to you, though, that I continue to have reservations. In Johnson County, we have 11 fire departments. The county government has 4, or maybe 3.5 now as we try to consolidate. And that sub-optimization of resources is problematic to me. And while I support your effort and commend you, my vote will reflect that concern.
Sure. And am I allowed to respond?
Go ahead, Chief.
I think it's also important to remember that we were the beginners of consolidation in this county in many ways. We were Mission Fire District 1, we were District 2, and we were District 3 that J.C. Nichols originally set up in this county to serve those communities. And District 2 and District 3 merged and became a bigger and better organization, and Mission Fire District 1 merged and became a bigger and better organization. But we serve 8 cities in Northeast Johnson County, and we serve those 8 cities with 100% of our effort toward their safety and security. And so I think that and there aren't 11 fire departments, I think there's 9 now, am I correct, Todd? There's 9, we've reduced that to the point where there's 9, but there's a big difference in that the 8 cities I serve, it wouldn't be cost effective for them all to have a fire department. So the fire, Overland Park Fire Department is a city function. Olathe Fire Department, Lenexa Fire Department, Shawnee Fire Department. They're our partners, and we do a lot with them. We mirror the way that they operate in many ways, but we serve 8 cities while they serve 1. So while I appreciate your sentiments, I think we've already done a lot to correct the problem that you're pointing out, in that 8 cities don't have 8 different fire departments. My organization serves them with 1, and so I just want you to recognize that.
And fair enough, and you have, but thank you for agreeing with my argument.
All right, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
I have 6 votes in favor, 1 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Okay. Chief, thank you so much. Appreciate you. At this time, we'll move on to resolution number 072-23, the Northwest Consolidated Fire District. Chief Maxton is going to be with us, as well as Ted Clemens from Budget and Financial Planning.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Ted Clemens with the Budget Office. This item is the statutorily required 2024 budget approval of Northwest Consolidated Fire District's budget. I show their assessed valuation increased roughly 9.6%. Their expenses increase about 18.7%. Their ad valorem increases 14.16%. And they have a mill levy increase of 0.801, which is 4.15%. Oh, I'm sorry. And now I will turn it over to Chief Maxton.
Thank you, Ted. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Todd Maxton, Northwest Fire. I will also point out that other members of my team, our accountant, legal team, and Vice Chair Lang, they are here with us today. I'm following Chief Chick's presentation. That was an excellent presentation. We share a lot of the same concerns, but we also are a vastly different department. Established is a very big word. We've been Northwest since 2010. Previous to that, we've been the DeSoto Fire Department, Johnson County Fire District 3, Lexington Rescue, Lexington Fire. Through the series of consolidations and mergers, here we are today. This is the 100th year of organized fire protection in the city of DeSoto. We really haven't had that much time to react to that because things are happening. This is an exciting time for our organization and our employees. They're seeing dirt move, they're seeing construction go vertical. We've been stagnant, but now is the time for Northwest. I'm not going to paint the rosiest picture that is easy. Mr. Ashcraft, you talk about being on the table. Sometimes I feel like we are the table. So that being said, with the excitement comes challenges. The fleet modernization continues. Our fleet replacement plan thankfully is there. We can talk about remaining debt-free and bond-free. We've had to make some emergency truck purchases. We are good stewards. We take that into consideration and what we could do at the time with still remaining still having the reserves. But we're also paying attention to the dollar and how far we can stretch those. Shopping, that's what we do. We're delaying some of the more non-essential vehicle replacements next year. In this budget, it does not include any heavy apparatus purchases. Workers' compensation insurance remains low due to low injury experience rates, and healthcare costs, they're never going to be great, but they've actually stabilized for us in the past couple of years. We're no longer community rated. We're underwriting and we're level funded. We've shopped it, and we're not seeing the double-digit percentage increases anymore. So we're well in tune with that. Training, water rescue program development continues. Over 2/3 of our employees are certified swiftwater rescue technicians. Training requirements also go along with the risk that go with our community. Aerial operator training, renewable energy training, lithium-ion battery training, factory site visits. Those things have occurred or are occurring within our organization. Chief Chick mentioned it. I know many people have been at this podium, especially in public safety. I can't describe it enough how far behind we are. Our starting pay currently is $44,138. Our firefighters deserve this. At the beginning of the year, this budget presentation increases salaries for hourly personnel 13%. This budget is also allowing to take a look after we see that it is attainable and sustainable. We're going to take a mid-year look knowing that our mid-level pay for hourly employees is up to 20% behind. Other than that, it's a no-frills budget. So that's the deep part of the budget. Our SAFER grant for staffing, that was for 3 years at 100% for 4 personnel. That benefited our community by about $750,000. That comes to an end next year. We're picking up those local contribution costs. We're not, in this budget, we're not proposing adding any new positions, even though we do need those positions to get firefighters on the truck. Panasonic is in our, will be within our fire district, and we'll talk about the new community improvement district. I'm sure you've heard about it. You'll be hearing more about it. It's in the planning stages, and we're getting close to the end, we believe, once finalized service level improvements are planned. This will replace the majority of the current Sunflower SRL contract. The 2024 budget that we're presenting today does not include this revenue, does not have anything to do with that part of the district. Because of this and revenues that are planned to come in and expenditures that will come out, a budget amendment is, I say possible, it's likely. Station number 13 is being replaced with a new fire and EMS station, actually a public safety center. It's currently under design in partnership with Johnson County government. A challenge, this unprecedented growth and millions of industrial and commercial square footage is planned and in progress. This is not just Panasonic or Astra Enterprise. This is the Flint Commerce Center and 5 million square feet of development, 2,500 housing units that are currently in the pipeline, some of those being multifamily dwellings. To keep up with TIF and abated growth, and I'm glad that that's already been mentioned, we don't have much control of it. We come in after the fact and we do a needs assessment. We do as much as possible that we can. To keep up with this by the means of alternative funding mechanisms and without burdening existing property owners is of the highest priority for our agency, and my board talks about it regularly. The enhancement of emergency services delivery is possible if done correctly. And an example of this is the Community Improvement District, even though it's not going to give us the full revenue growth on the tax rolls. But an example is the funding for a planned aerial fire truck via partner contributions. I think that's a very good example that I can use. With the new buildings comes a different hazard with building height. The City of DeSoto zoning allows up to 100 feet in building height. It's not just the commercial area, it's also the unincorporated area, and how do we get water there? So we work with the fire districts and also the Overland Park Fire Department in addressing some of our newer concerns. We talked about the explosive wage increases and keeping up with the market. The price of a fire truck it's there. It's not surprising to many people. Performance measures, travel and response times remain consistently low throughout the district, especially since we cover a large rural area. We've talked about the fleet. Our training hours are up, and the insurance services office assessment is occurring, and we're waiting on the results of that. And before I close, I would like to thank Commissioner Allenbrand for her involvement. She attends most of the meetings that she can. I think she's well in tune with our agency, and we're at an all-time high with our partnerships, working with CMO and county staff, and I can't thank you more. So I'll take any questions. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Allenbrand, it's your district.
Yes, I've got on my notes here. Sorry. Well, Chief Maxwell, take a breath. It's been, I think about it, and I think about, the difference in the fire stations, from our previous presentation to now. And, you went from a volunteer firefighter. You had fire stations that, looking at buying a fire truck, trying to get a used fire truck, the fire truck wouldn't fit in the building. So you look at everything that you've had to look at. I have to say that one thing I have been impressed from the time I started working as the liaison in the fire stations was your capital improvement plan, your spreadsheets of having, every single thing, listed is not even just something new that you were going to purchase, but also, the forecast of what your lease might come open. It's been very detailed. And I think that, so you have a lot of things on your plate. Also, firefighters being the lowest paid within our county. And that was a struggle, and that wasn't fair. I mean, you know, it's really important to take care of our firefighters. So you and your board had to address that, not all, counting all the great things you do with the water safety program, you know, the things that you do, just hearing today how everybody partners together. And that's one thing I've been so impressed with all of our Fire 1, Northwest, Fire 2, how everybody works together, including the cities. You know, it is, you know, I went to a groundbreaking this week, and there was an announcement made of development coming in the first 200 homes, and then another 200, so that's 400. I'm trying to calculate in my mind. And then also, you know, apartments. You never really had apartments that were located in Spring Hill. So they're looking at, Spring Hill, DeSoto, sorry, I'm thinking. So that's new, the height, which you've never had before, which you're looking into. I also look, you know, just going down the highway, Highway 10, with the developments that are coming off of West Olathe, also in Lenexa, just going down the highway and seeing how that plays. I just can't say enough. I know it's frustrating, and you're in a growth cycle, and that it's not easy to sit here. It's not been easy for your board, and I just appreciate all the work that you've put into this, and I just want to thank you and your board and your staff.
Chief, quick question for you. First of all, one quick comment. Thanks for your commitment to paying your people properly. I know that doesn't happen overnight, but being dedicated to moving that in the right direction is warranted, and thank you for your commitment to do that. My question is about planning out beyond just this federal 2024 budget, fiscal year 2024 budget. Is there, or how has the Northwest Fire District planned for what's anticipated to be rapid growth in and around the community? Is there a 5-year plan that you have from not only an equipment, but from a staffing level? How are you all addressing that challenge?
Mr. Chairman, good question. Our fleet replacement plan goes out 10 years to make it viable. As far as the staffing plan, honestly, it's kind of based off of the projected growth, working alongside the city of DeSoto and the school district, trying to figure out what they already have for data is important to us. And then as we look ahead, currently working on our 5-year strategic plan, it's been difficult, but since the past 18 months have been very fluid. But we don't look at adding new positions until we have some type of vision in place and making sure that that funding mechanism is going to be there. Do we take a higher risk with the unknown and taking one of the examples is taking a mid-year look at another pay increase? That way we can take a look at the property valuation numbers that we get in March. So those are just some examples.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't even know where to start. You have really been put in a horrible position that you're looking at a $4 billion project that has $200 million of TIF district, which has destroyed the tax base. I mean, that's just public knowledge. The county has already had to send up $7.5 million for the new fire station. In the 90s, the mantra was, growth must pay for itself. We've totally thrown that out the window. And at the current level in 2022, we diverted $93.5 million from public coffers to the pockets of developers. Johnson County is a great place to do business. And the fact that we are giving 100% tax increment finance districts, except they do pay the 8 mills for the school district, it's putting you in an impossible position. And then the wage inflation. I mean, you're right in the middle of it, because Panasonic's going to be able to offer unbelievable salaries because we're paying for it. We have $1.2 million of public money, and now, according to the Star, Panasonic is eligible for another $6.8 billion. And how can anyone compete with that? So I'm just, here it is. I mean, you're in the middle of it, and thank you for working diligently, but a 4.1% increase in the mill levy, what was the average increase in appraised value in your area?
The average, so we're up, the valuation's up 11%.
11%. So folks in the fire districts are going to be paying over 15% increase because of Panasonic and all of the other development and the tax and the property tax dollars aren't following. So you said the community improvement district, what percentage is Panasonic going to be, or Ad Astra, or whoever you want to say, what percentage are they going to be paying of the normal property tax for the fire district?
So that is unknown, that we have provided our needs assessment. We are not, as part of the primary negotiation team, that is the city of DeSoto. We have our request in, and our needs assessment's been there for the Public Safety Center / fire station, the ongoing operational cost, and also an aerial fire truck.
Right, and all of the increases that will be required with a battery manufacturing facility because of the high probability of fire, and lithium battery fires are horrendous. And for you to be willing to stay and stand and fight for the community, thank you, because this is a huge, huge project. So thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner O'Hare, well said. Well said. I appreciate your comments. I'll pile on a little bit. Chief, you're not the only one, but you are one that has a tremendous challenge ahead of you for the services you provide from a number of different levels. And I think I probably respect most in you the fact that you take it with pretty good humor. And I appreciate the fact that we talked yesterday, are talking about trying to come up with a strategic plan to evolve fire service in that area. It's going to be a challenge. As we know, the county has agreed to contribute $7.5 million to a fire station. Obviously, that's not going to pay for the fire station. What are the plans, or do we have firm plans in terms of who will underwrite, since as Commissioner O'Hare has pointed out, the TIF is confounding revenues in that regard. Who will be underwriting that? Will that be the district or Panasonic or the city of DeSoto, or are there other sources that you're looking for?
The assumption is that will be the funding partner, which will primarily involve Panasonic.
But you said you were the table on that one. You're not at the table in terms of those.
We're not in the room. No.
Okay. Very good. Do you have, or could you talk a little bit about your reserve policy for your department?
Yeah, so typically the goal is a 20% reserve capacity. We've wanted it to be higher than that. It's actually dipped a little bit below that. It's actually probably going to be a little bit lower next year. And we do try to keep the county policy in mind as we go about it, but also with our mill levy rate, we also know that we can't have as high as a reserve because that's not fair to our taxpayer. We have to keep the lights on, so a minimum of a 6 months reserve is what we're currently trying to target, and it's a regular item that our board discusses.
Okay. Do you have an equipment reserve policy also?
No, it's general reserve.
It's just general reserve? Okay. And what is your overhead to operations ratio?
The ratio, I don't know if I can answer that question as far as ongoing maintenance cost, those types of items. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm talking about the administrative support for the operations. As we visited yesterday, there was you and...
Yes, that is correct. So our leadership team, I'm the 8 to 5 employee, and we also have battalion chiefs with the other 24/7. And as far as the ratio goes, this is going to be the first time that personnel services will be up around 80%. and then the administrative costs that go along with that and contractual
Okay.
make up the difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, Station 13, or what's commonly the Panasonic station, there's a CID that's in place that's going to supplement what would be property taxes to the tune of about $700,000 a year, right?
That is one of the requests for the ongoing operational costs for fire and emergency services delivery, yes.
And that'd be paid by what's ever within that district?
Roughly 1,600 acres.
Okay, so
And that's only part of Astra Enterprise, yeah.
it's a part of Astra Enterprise, so Panasonic, for example?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Allenbrand,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to make a couple comments, and then if it's okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
go ahead.
First of all, Chief Maxwell, I want to just say, I want to clarify that the county give one-time money for $7.5 million towards the fire station. And then also Ad Astra did give, it started out with 5 acres given, and I think, Joe, aren't we at 7 acres now?
I believe that the city of DeSoto has accepted a plat, it's up to 10 acres.
So now it's up to 10. So anyway, so I just want to make that comment. And then also that you're working very closely with the city of DeSoto. I know we hear a lot about Panasonic. There's some people that, don't want to produce that battery here. I've seen the production of the battery, and I know you've been there, and I think you feel very comfortable with that plant and how secure it is, and they're building those batteries. Also want to say that, that was one-time money that we, and fit the criteria to give that $7.5 million, and then also another $7.5 million went to road infrastructure. So I know that I want to thank Mr. Clemens for his work, the budget team, working very closely with your team and with your board. I think that's very important. And I do want to say that Panasonic is not the only development out there. So when I was talking about all the housing that's going in, there's some other warehouses going in. It's not just them. So we need to make sure that we're not just pointing out one business all the time, that there's other growth going on at this time out there. And I know I'm probably forgetting something, but again, I appreciate the work that went into this. And Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I do have a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 budgets for Northwest Consolidated Fire District and adopt resolution number 072-23.
Hanslick, second.
Moved by Allenbrand, seconded by Hanslet. Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. My vote is not going to be any reflection on your, on your administrative responsibilities with this fire district. My vote is an absolute protest against these tax increment finance districts that is just absolutely decimating the tax base. So my vote will reflect that.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, again, I recognize you're in an unusual position in history. I do wish you well. I still have reservations about the structure of fire services. No one would have created fire departments as fragmented as they are in Johnson County intentionally. I look forward to the day that we can make positive efforts that offer support and equalization in terms of treatments and abilities for fire services. Until then, I have reservations, and my vote will reflect that.
Another?
Yes, just one other comment. Problem with your mill levy being so much higher than the other mill levies of the fire districts, that's going to create a real problem with consolidation, because it's going to put that burden of not having the adequate tax base because of all the tax incentives that's been given away in DeSoto. It's going to create a real barrier for those consolidations. Thank you.
So, Chief, let me ask you a question. If we were all to take a protest vote here and not approve a budget for you, and you didn't have an ability to run fire service, who would provide fire service to the people in the Northwest?
That's a great question.
Okay,
That's a great question.
thank you. All right, with that, go ahead and call the question.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
No.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Aye, 5 votes in favor, 2 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That's correct.
All right, thank you, Chief, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're going to move on to Resolution Number 071-23. This is the Fire District Number 1 budget. Ted Clemens, again, our senior budget analyst, is here with us. Interim Chief, Chief Morley, is also here.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Ted Clemens with the Budget Office. This is the statutorily required 2024 budget approval of Fire District Number 1. Their expenditures increase around 8.32%. Their ad valorem increases 9.1, their ad valorem taxes increase 9.14%. Their ad valorem is around 11%. And then their mill levy in your documentation will decrease around 2.16%. However, when taking into account pending exemptions and appeals, that'll be closer to 1%. And I'll turn it over to Interim Chief Morley.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Trig Morley, Interim Fire Chief, Fire District 1 of Johnson County. I think before we get started, I'd like to just mention that we have Randy Gogorskic, our Fire Board Chair, with us today, along with Division Chief Colby Stanchfield and Division Chief Aaron Winkler. Some key points, accomplishments, and challenges as we discuss this. In 2023, we were able to add 3 new firefighter positions to help increase staffing levels and reduce overtime. We reduce overhead expenses by not replacing a vacant administrative director position and a division chief position. In about 2.5 years, that's approximately 6 overhead positions that we've eliminated. We've been able to use those funds towards salary increases for our firefighters and to increase the staffing as well. We continue to focus on employee pay. That's been a topic of discussion. Fire District 1 strives to increase employee pay to remain competitive with other fire departments in Johnson County and the KC Metro. This year, for our 2024 proposed budget, we're looking at a 10% increase for our battalion chiefs, our captains, our lieutenants, and our firefighters, all of the guys that carry the service to the streets. And then it's an 8% increase for the division chiefs and above. Again, that's a huge challenge for us. Steve Chick, I think, made a very compelling argument with that, and we continue to strive to stay competitive with our area departments. With this increase, we will still be the 2nd lowest paid fire department in Johnson County. Our firefighters have the same requirements that the firefighters from Northeast Consolidated District 2 have. The state certifications for firefighters, at a minimum, they're an EMT or a paramedic. So the same training that they have to come to work for Fire District 1 is the same training that they have to go to work for any of the other fire municipalities in Johnson County. We spent a lot of time talking about ways that we can improve efficiencies. And through that, we've looked at some services that we use, software services and online services, to do things like collect our data, our in-first fire reports, personnel management as far as scheduling softwares, things that we do to make our payroll reports. And we've been able to consolidate those services out of multiple different platforms into one platform, saving us an estimated $5,000 annually. We also took a look at a lot of our data and communications platforms that we use, and we're able to eliminate simply phone lines and things of that nature to increase that savings. So we're projecting a $13,000 annual savings just in technology and communications. We continue to see major residential and commercial development within Fire District 1's response area. You know, in every part of our district, there's dirt moving on industrial warehousing, commercial development, and residential development. The demand for service in Fire District 1 is at an all-time high. In 2022, we ran 4,957 calls. We are on track this year for a 15% increase in call volume from 2022 to 2023. We're projecting just under 5,800 calls for service in 2023. It's not only the emergency calls that our service areas demand, the demand has increased, it's also on our prevention staff, with over 1,100 occupancy inspections conducted, 17 daycare inspections, 390 burn permits, 19 fireworks permits, 114 plan and plot reviews, 41 fire investigations, and 103 public relations events. We continue to look for and seek out innovative ways to provide our required service. I know Chief Chick spoke about the advanced life support services. We too, with our consolidation with Fire District 2 and the operational consolidation that we've done with them, we've realized the benefit of having paramedics on our fire trucks. At this time, we have 3 of our employees in a paramedic program. We're looking forward to them to complete that training in March of 2024. Community outreach and public education is another area that we see a high demand for. So we've got a group of individuals on within our organization that are working hard to develop a community outreach and public education program. Just in October, we visit with approximately 3,000 elementary school students during Fire Prevention Week. Is one example where we hope that community outreach and public education program will help benefit us getting that safety message out to our community. Training. Our training numbers are up. We're in 2022, we've spent 16,804 documented training hours. We do continue to seek out innovative ways to do training. We take advantage of platforms online and things like that we can get the latest and greatest training information to our employees in an environment where they're in the station, they're not on the move, they're not having to travel. We also take advantage of training with all of our response partners. We work a lot with the city of Olathe. We are currently working on an agreement to where we can send our firefighters, our EMTs and paramedics up to Olathe to take advantage of their high-fidelity skills simulation labs that's going to let us use technology to better our patient skills. We also work closely with Johnson County MedAct on our training and all of our fire service partners throughout the county. We've taken, the average age of our fire apparatus fleet is 4.3 years. We did purchase a new engine. Technically, the engine was purchased in 2022, but we did finally realize the delivery of that this past spring with a new fire engine at Station 81, putting us in a stable position for our fire apparatus into the future. We continue to work on our capital improvements plan to identify those needs as we move forward. We're taking the first steps to develop a community-driven strategic plan. The Fire District 1 needs a roadmap into the future, and we're starting some conversations internally and with our fire board and with our community partners on what a strategic plan would look like for Fire District 1. We've got a great opportunity to work with some folks that have some history here in the county, the Center for Public Safety Excellence being one of them. And we've reached out to them and started some conversations with them on what a community-driven strategic plan would look like for Fire District 1. Again, giving us that roadmap into the future to help us plan out the growth of the fire district. We continue to reduce the mill levy through financial stewardship of the tax dollars. It has allowed us to reduce the mill levy despite our challenges with growth and everything that comes with that. On our performance measures, as I stated before, we're projecting a 15% increase in call volume for both 23 and 24. Our assessed evaluation on average across our fire district was 11%. Holding our mill levy basically flat, that means that we're doing 15% more work, delivering 15% more service, with approximately 11% more funding based off that that growth in our assessed evaluation. As growth continues and call volume increases, the ability for responders to get to the patient side to initiate fire rescue services will continue to be stressed. This is due largely in part of the expanse of our fire district and the large rural areas that we cover. and the sheer call volume. Our overall response time goal will continue to be above the national standard. NFPA 1710 gives a performance measure of 4 minutes with approximately an 80-second response time on that. We stay just above that, just again, primarily due to the large area we cover. We do see the same challenges when it comes to attracting and retaining those quality personnel that want to make a career out of public safety. So we continue to develop and implement leadership and management philosophies to seek out innovative ways to attract and retain those high caliber folks. One example of that is our partnership with the Gardner-Edgerton School District, USD 231, where for our third year now, we've partnered and we have high school seniors that take a class that puts them in our fire station and prepares them for what a career in the fire service looks like. It starts with getting them prepared for the credentialing and the minimum requirements that they would have to do that. That program has provided us one employee at this point, and basically my tagline on that is we're trying to produce candidates, homegrown candidates for our organization. Our prevention, community engagement, and public education activities all continue to increase. It's not just the emergencies. There's a desire from the public that we serve to integrate and interact with our fire department before the emergencies. That's all I have for my presentation, so I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Chief, thank you very much for stepping in here. I know being in an interim role can be tough, but I appreciate the courage with which you bring to the table. So thank you for that. I got a couple of questions. I mentioned it last week when you were here for our agenda review, and I asked about how you're dealing with pay increases. Obviously, the challenges that everybody's feeling right now. What's the plan for Fire District 1 to either step those pay scales up or to recruit enough people to be able to preclude the needed use of overtime and having to come back to us next year, mid-year?
So we have developed a step pay plan, which is really similar to a lot of the other pay plans that we see. We've done our due diligence with reaching out to really all of the other fire service organizations within the county to get an understanding of where they're at. Even with our proposed increase, we are still, I should say, the goal of the fire district is to be the middle to the bottom of the top third as far as pay is concerned with all of the organizations in Johnson County. So that's a goal that the fire department administration and the fire board developed and agreed upon. Even with our 10% increase amongst our firefighter ranks, we're still 4 to 9% behind that goal. In our captains and lieutenants, our company officers, we're 12 to 15% behind that goal. I'm really excited about the conversations that we've had about developing a strategic plan and a roadmap for the future, and working with our fire board and our community partners. I really believe that we're quick to identify the issues, and we're slow to create the solutions. And so I think that strategic plan will be our roadmap for the future to help us address strategies to get to where we need to be pay-wise and staffing-wise.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the 5-year or the strategic plan. How far out do you think it's going to look? Is it a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year? And obviously with the increased growth in your community, it's necessary, and I'm really glad that you all are doing that. How can the county be supportive?
I do think that, it's going to be working with staff, working with our commissioner and staff here at the county, because we don't just serve the communities of Gardner and Edgerton and Spring Hill. It's also the county, and we're good partners with all of the agencies in Johnson County. I don't think we've realized putting together a community-driven strategic plan for multiple communities. I've visited with Chief Chick about this briefly, and because I think that they're a good model for our organization. And one of the questions I've asked him, and we haven't had a chance to visit about it, but how did you do that with 8 communities? Because if we can do it with 8 communities, then we can certainly do it with 3 communities. So I don't even think I've realized the answer to your question yet is who needs to be involved and what involvement do we need to develop that strategic plan? And my hope would be is that we have short-term goals, 3 to 5 years, but we also need to be looking out 10 to 20 years to address the continued development that we're going to see in Southwest Johnson County.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Commissioner Fast.
Yeah, can you, for us who live in the northeast and northern, so Fire District 2 is going to be, part of it will come into 1, and then we have agreement with Overland Park. Can you explain more your service boundaries and what part of 2 that will become into 1?
Fire District 1's current taxing authority, the service boundaries that we have, is basically 143rd Street to where it would run into Olathe south, and then Clare Road to the west. 143rd to the Johnson County line south, Clare Road, Johnson County line west. It includes all of the city of Gardner, Edgerton, and then with our service agreement with Fire District Number 2, we're serving the city of Spring Hill all the way east to Lackman Road. So I believe that service area is right around 216 square miles. We do that, Fire District 1 has 4 facilities, and then the Fire District 2 facility in Spring Hill is the 5th.
So Stillwell, Area B, it goes to Overland Park.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
I'm sitting here highlighting, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Morley, I'm just sitting here and I'm kind of overwhelmed with a lot of things I want to say. And do you care if I have Kobe come up to the podium
ma'am.
as well? And I don't want to leave you, I'm sorry, I know you're not going to like this because you're a big numbers person and I can already see him getting red. First of all, and I don't want to be remiss that you're here as well, but I know, so I have to say that when I first started working with Fire One, there was no website. Financials really weren't posted. There wasn't a lot of coordination between the cities, and you've come a long ways. And I've been assured by our budget staff, and I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to our staff, Mark Dad, Mr. Clemens, Brent, I mean, I got a rundown, and you know, so I was concerned and I had questions about the shortfalls that we've had in place the last year, and you know, just filling out the state forms. So I have been assured and been told we have a 5-year capital improvement plan with a life cycle, capital needs. I'd like to see that to be 10 years, and along with some of the other fire stations. There's a good financial forecast, a good team here of putting together those state forms and knowing how to fill them out and putting those in place. Also a staff increase. So I'm going to be very honest, and I've said this to the board. I felt bad when you went before the board trying to get a larger increase. And the chairman, I called him and I said I felt like you were being thrown under the bus. And so it would have been nice, and I'm just going to say it publicly, you know, that to get that support before you go make a presentation of knowing, you know, where you can go. You guys are a great team and a great team with our county staff. And and then I think about the workforce partnership is what I've heard today from 3 different fire stations, working with Johnson County Community College, working with Olathe Fire. We don't need to have all these academies. We need to share within our county of training, and that helps keep our costs down. Plus, it makes us stronger to partnership. The school district, you know, that's been going on, I think it's 3 years now. I showed a picture to my granddaughter because first she wanted to be a policeman, then she wanted to be a fighter. Now she's going to be an all-time soccer player. But, I had to show her the picture of a woman firefighter, and that was exciting, to see a woman. I think that there has been so many things put in place. I feel confident that we're going to move forward in the right direction. I also want to say, we're going to have that pilot TIF program rolling off of Edgerton, and we're all going to be looking. It's probably somewhere between 23 to 24 million. I wished it was 44 million. So 23 to 24 million, and that needs to be a plan. And I also appreciate now that the city administrator, the mayors, are also receiving those reports. If you could do them a little bit sooner, that would help. But I can't thank you enough for the work that you guys have done. And I see you guys on a regular basis. I was at the parade, there you were, along with the other fire stations. We had tacos at the first time ever groundbreaking in Edgerton, a community center they're going to have for pickleball. It's a senior center, and then also green space. So. And the homes that are, you've never had homes in Edgerton before. It's been, I think, under 1,000. So now all of a sudden you've got this growth. And so that needs to be part of your plan. So I feel very confident from what the staff told me, as long as you're following it, you're not going to be back here again. And just well done. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief. Challenges, but let's not forget accomplishments also. And I know Commissioner Allenbrand just talked about some, but you provide great service, outstanding service. And the thing I'm proud of is that we have a lot of men that say, can do, will do, must do. And I'm really proud of that, and I can't give you enough compliment. Chief Clemens, I would not want to have your job, but I'm glad we have you doing your job. All of you doing your jobs. I'm glad we have you. I've had a lot of people tell me, I wouldn't want your job. That's okay. I enjoy my job because of people like you that do the work that you do. I think being positive and having that positive attitude, it's what has to be. It's where we got to go. You won't see me protest. That's, to me, if we all, just like we said, if we were up here and we all protested our vote, we would be defunding. That's exactly what it is. It would be defunding our services of fire to our residents. Safety services is my number one priority, always has been in all my government service over the past 30 years. We need to continue having the positive attitude of getting the job done. We will get it done, and we have to work as a board to help do what we can to provide what you need to properly serve the residents from a fire standpoint in Johnson County.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for those comments, Commissioner Myers. Because I was sitting here thinking about, I can't really think of a more basic need in our community that the government is required to provide and obligated to provide than fire safety services. That's fire and law enforcement, first responders, that's just basic of what we need. And first of all, I want to thank Commissioner Allenbrand. I have seen over the past few years how she has really dug in, got her hands dirty to work with the fire districts, Northwest and number 1, to make some very positive changes. So thank you for doing that on behalf of Johnson County. The concern I have is I'm hearing some issues with salaries. And while we all are struggling to balance fiscal responsibility, concern for taxpayers' situations, I'm concerned about keeping that balance, that we're also paying our firefighters the correct salary, because we don't want to be in a situation where we've balanced too far one way and we don't have appropriate staffing. So if you might talk about that, how is that impacting things right now, and what do we need to know about getting those salaries to where you have appropriate and reliable staffing?
Thank you for the question. At the beginning of 2023, we were glad that we were able to fund 3 additional positions. As soon as we announced that in the first month of 2023, we lost 4 employees that left to go to higher salary jobs within the fire service, and that's really eye-opening for us. But I also appreciate we talk about partnerships with the fire organizations in Johnson County, and I mentioned this last week, is that we're participating in a pay study that the city of Olathe Fire Department is kind of driving, and providing them our data and our support, so we can have those good comparisons with where the salaries will lie within the county. I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for all of the fire districts, and then also different ways to address it is Chief Chick talks about the culture. We took steps in 2022 to try to develop a culture within the organization that people, it's not just about the salary, it's about wanting to come to work and provide the service. So.
No, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I agree that the culture is really important, but I want to make sure that our fabulous firefighters are being paid what they deserve. And we put a lot of money into our sheriff's department budget so that they can pay their folks appropriately. We need to do the same for you, and so I stand ready to do whatever's needed. I don't want to nickel and dime our firefighters. And yes, culture is important, but that doesn't pay your mortgage or put food on your table. So appreciate that.
Chief, a question, and the answer is probably I don't know, but do you have an idea of not only the fiscal cost, but the temporal amount of time put in to hire, to do the background checks, to train, and to get a firefighter up to speed? Do you have any idea of what that is?
I do not have that, and actually that's that is something that we need to measure, because if we really the biggest part of that cost is losing an employee, and especially if it's somebody with some tenure, somebody that's been in the organization and is established, that's where it truly impacts us. If I can hire 3 people, but if I lose 4 that already have that experience, then I'm just starting over. So trying to put a dollar figure to that the tenure and all of the training and all of the investment you made has been a challenge. But you're right, the answer is I don't have that information.
And I didn't expect you to, but I think it's an important part of the conversation. And you got already ahead to my second question. Is it's very difficult to measure what's the institutional knowledge, we talk about culture, about retaining people and keeping them within the organization and the system, and how that can be a real savings for the taxpayer and provide a higher level of service and safety to the community. So I know those are very difficult metrics to be able to measure, but I think they're important to the conversation, even if the numbers on the page can be a little esoteric at times. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Clemens, how much of your tax base is abated?
don't have that information. We have, how much of it?
How many of the intermodal buildings is there out there?
It's expansive. There's a large part of our district. As far as those businesses being on the tax roll, it's very, very few.
As I understand it, they're paying approximately 16 cents a square foot for property taxes, which is probably at this point about a 95% property tax abatement. And then part of that is also going back to their infrastructure. I mean, it's a sweet deal, but basically what's happening is that the rest of the tax base is having to step up and absorb those costs. What was the increase in valuation in your district?
11% on average.
Okay, so, and you decreased the mill levy by, said 2.1%, but then it was said after all of the appeals, it'll probably be a 1%?
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be a 10% increase in taxes for the good folks in that area, in Edgerton and Gardner, except for the chosen few who have the tax incentives. But I do know that one of the buildings is scheduled to come off of tax incentives in 2024. Is that correct?
I believe that it comes off the tax rolls, and then we would realize those tax dollars in 2025.
2025, okay. I am very impressed that you were able to take 6 positions that were in management and then add 3 to the force that's actually on the ground doing the work. I think that's a good template for us to follow. And I appreciate your work with Chief Francis in consolidating with Fire District 2. This has been a long road, and you guys have done a great job. And it is just too bad that we have this philosophy that everyone isn't paying their fair share in taxes, because it puts an unnecessary burden. Intermodal was a geographically driven development. They were going to be there anyway, but the city of Edgerton decided to go that route, and no one had ability to stop it. And the good folks out there are suffering the consequences. So thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner O'Hare, a couple of points to offer, maybe argument, but clarification. Chief Morley is new in that role, because I had noticed that in your challenges you had not mentioned TIFs. We had talked yesterday, and your point, again, I fully understand and am supportive of that. Chief Morley did express that privately yesterday, that TIFs is an underlying issue in terms of revenues and costs. So I just, Chief, am I misstating that?
No, sir. That's
okay. Very good. But let me understand, are we on track for, and I'll use the term lightly, full consolidation with District 1 by next year? Is that the plan? Chief Morley is looking at former Chief Francis, who's staring harshly at me for that question. Is that the plan? I mean, it may slip a month or two or whatever, but is that?
You're right. I've been in this position for a very narrow time,
Yeah.
2 months, and in those 2 months, I've spent a great deal of time with Chief Francis visiting about this. He's taken the time to bring me up to speed, so I understand the original plan that was set into motion, where we're currently at on that plan, and what the next steps needs to be. Fire District 1 is supportive of those steps and everything that we need to do. It is my belief that the right man is in the position to help us navigate that,
Okay.
And get us to where we need to be. As far as the timeline.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to make sure. Now, there has been some conversation around that one of your board members had expressed a concern that you possibly had a $500,000 glitch or hiccup, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that for us.
Yes, the comment was made. It's simply not the case, and we're continuing to work through our current financial reports. So we'll be able to make sure that he can be confident with where we're at in our current budget situation, our current budget cycle. So he has the confidence moving forward to support us as a board member.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, and building on a little bit of what Commissioner O'Hara said, I appreciate Commissioner O'Hara pointing out, and for you to reference the point that you've been able to move 6 administrative overhead positions, transfer them to operational positions. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's the right perspective. I too take a little bit of umbrage with the implication that my concerns expressed about fire services is any way defunds or wanting to defund those services, because they are critical. So I do take exception with that. But I will offer, and Chief, 2 months, I respect that. I will tell you that your predecessors, both of them, over the years have assured this body repeatedly that you are running that operation as efficiently as possible. So I appreciate you being able to pull magic out of the hat and move administrative overhead costs into operational costs. So I thank you for that.
Commissioner O'Hara, then Commissioner Allenbrand.
I just wanted to apologize that I misspoke on your last name, so sorry about that.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, Commissioner Myers, I appreciate your comments because I feel the same way. If you can't get a vote, and it's, and if we all voted no on your budgets, then I don't know what you would do. Also, when you start talking about TIF programs, and that's something the cities determine, and that's why you have elected city council members, elected mayors within those cities. I also want to say that when you put that the Fire One was charged because there was so many administrative chiefs, so to speak, and that was one of the missions of Fire One, was to put that into place. So I think you're kind of getting things in order by all the other things that I talked about. And I do want to say, whether I believe in TIFs or not believe in TIFs, there was a pilot program put into place that you receive revenue, and I want to make sure that we clarify, because I just don't want misinformation out there. So there is monies and that you get, that come from those pilot programs. And you do have some of the intermodal are coming off the, will be coming into paying more taxes. Also, some of that pilot program went to schools. We need to make sure we point that out, and that you do have between 24, 25 million that's going to be rolling off, and that's what I said I want to see in future, how that's going to be used. So let's not, we can't criticize what's been put into place, because there are other things that are happening. Commissioner Myers, I just wanted to let you know that's Chief Maxwell out there. Oh. So, no, I know. Maxton. Well, see, I didn't even get it right.
Name tags next time, guys.
Yeah, sorry. That's me. I also want to
Chief, I apologize.
Chief Francis has worked with all the fire stations, and his background and experience is vital. And I also want to thank Joe Connor. He's been helping work, so I feel like that, we're involved, and I want to make sure that we make those comments, that everybody knows how important it is to work together. So, Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I have a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 budgets for Johnson County Fire District 1 and to adopt resolution number 071-23.
Hanslick, second.
So moved by Allenbrand, seconded by Commissioner Hanslick. Go ahead, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I expressed previously with the same reservations, my vote will reflect those concerns.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, just another question. Can you tell me again, what is the starting salary for a firefighter in your district?
Yeah, so in 2024, it'll be 50,000.
Okay, 50,000. I'm just looking here at the new sheriff's step plan, and their starting salary is 57,200. So just a comparison.
All right. Commissioner Allenbrand, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I also wanted to make a comment. So Chief Morley, I want you to know when some of the commissioners are talking about consolidation, it's not consolidating with other fire stations, it's consolidating within the county. And the county then is a partner. So I just want to make sure that you know when you're talking consolidation, it's not a, they're talking about, is that correct? Commissioner Ashcraft, you're consolidating with the county. When you're talking consolidation, I just want you to clarify what.
I'm looking at 4 fire departments and 4 chiefs and 4 deputy chiefs and 4 accountants and 4 HR departments or HR functions, attorneys and so forth. That's what I'm talking about.
I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Understood. Yep. Thank you very much, Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm happy to hear the commissioners so supportive of the sheriff when in 2022, it was like pulling teeth to get those pay increases. And it was a battle, and I appreciate that we finally got there, but to continually, to continually brag about something that you were fighting tooth and nail is just really rather interesting. And I agree with Commissioner Ashcraft that this consolidation, it absolutely has to happen with, especially with Fire District 1 and Fire District 2 and the duplication of administrative cost. That is a huge issue. The city of Spring Hill, I mean, those poor folks, their mill levy is just, it is so burdensome with the increase in growth. And so we have to do everything that we can possibly do to get this consolidation in place. But like I said, with the high mill levy in the Northwest, it's going to be difficult because we're going to be actually spreading that cost over a larger geographic area, and people are going to be a little concerned about that. But perhaps the reflection in the decreased cost will level that out. So I agree. We have to continue, and I hats off to Chief Francis for continuing this process of getting 1 and 2 consolidated.
One thing I did want to mention is I know a lot of, I know you, brand new, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And brand new is not a right term. New to the role, not new to the service. Thank you. Sorry for that. But there has been great help to Fire District 1 from Johnson County. And the staff here has picked up some slack. I know you guys consolidated a lot of administrative roles. I know our staff has picked up a lot of the administrative work. So I know that can't continue infinitum. And eventually that administrative work and the help that our county has is going to have to go back to Fire District 1 if they're going to stand on their own. But I wanted to make sure that I recognize the work that has been done by our team because we're all partners. We're working on this together, and we want to see it be a success, and we're glad that this is a step in the right direction. I think the budget continue in the process for Fire District 1 continues to improve, and we look forward to that improvement continuing. So thank you very much for the work. Commissioner Ashcraft?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I concur with what you just said, absolutely. There have been efforts made, and I appreciate those discussions. I'm more of a pushing forward, but I appreciate what has been done. I did want to offer a counterpoint to Commissioner O'Hara. Commissioner, you indicated this a couple of times. I would suggest that the argument that the mill levies all have to be the same is a misnomer, because it's the cost of services. For example, Merriam consolidated with Overland Park. I think that's probably for a contract. And Merriam Fire Service does not have a separate mill levy. They just pay for the services. And District Chief Francis, I always get yours confused. District 2 had contract services with Miami County and others. It's the amount of money and whatever the source of revenues. Now, for most departments, as I think one of the chiefs mentioned, it's primarily dependent on the mill levy, but they have flexibility in setting whatever mill levy they want to pay for the services. So I would just offer that as a counterpoint. That to me is a common misconception that you have to have the same mill levy. You have to have consolidation to see those savings potentials, and that's my argument.
All right. Well, I'm going to call the
Mr. Chairman?
question.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the question. We've got a number of items to go. We can get into the theory of mill levies and consolidation at a later time, and I look forward to those discussions. But for now, I'm going to call the question on the motion.
Second.
And second, ask the clerk to call roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Aye. 6 votes in favor, 1 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That's correct.
All right, thank you very much. Next, resolution number 070-23, Fire District's number 2's fiscal year 2024 budget. We should be able to streamline this, given the opportunity that we are sitting as the board and have heard some of this information more than once. But I do want to welcome up Ted Clemens, our senior budget analyst, and Jim Francis, the Fire Services Administrator for Johnson County.
Thank you. Ted Clemens with the Budget Office. Again, this is the statutorily required 2024 approval of Fire District Number 2's budget. And just real briefly, on your documentation, you'll see their expenses look to increase around 38%. However, that goes down to around 9% when you exclude the reserves in 24 and 23. Ad valorem taxes increase around 7.7%, and I show their assessed valuation up about 11.6%. And lastly, their mill levy will decrease around 3.5%. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Francis now.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having me. So I know I've already given this presentation to you about 6 times since June, so I'll expedite this. But you see the numbers here. Fire District 2 will be lowering the levy 0.251, the total mill levy reduction. Bulk of the expenditures are our 2 contracts. The Overland Park agreement is $3,140,000 for 2024. And just a reminder to all, Overland Park provides service from 2 existing fire stations in the Stillwell area, 191st and Metcalf. The fire district owns that facility and equipment. 184th and Mission Road, the fire district owns that equipment and facility. Overland Park also provides service to the Central Cora Fire District 2, east of Lackman, from a new station that they built, which is located near Blue Valley Southwest High School, using their own equipment and their own station. Fire District 2 under contract with Overland Park for 22 fire service positions. They too have had to increase salaries, which is the lion's share of this increase for next year. They gave salary increases, I believe 10.5% to their firefighters. The Fire District Number 1 agreement is the territory west of Lackman Road to Clare Road, and that agreement's $3,025,000. As you heard the chief talk earlier, the bulk of that increase is salaries as well to try and bring their department up. I believe that they went up 10%. And then we have a code enforcement agreement for the Fire District 1 Fire Marshal to provide service within the areas west of Lackman Road, Miami County Fire District 2, and the City of Spring Hill. So the expenditures for the Fire District 1 contract, all contracts, $3,044,670. We fund 22 fire service positions, Fire District 2 does, for Fire District number 1, and we contribute approximately $45,000 annually for an administrative assistant position. So that's how that works. The Fire District 2 expenses that we control directly are fuel, utilities, truck payments, insurance, those type related expenses, and they're just under $500,000. Non-budgeted expenditures plan, the capital outlay were reserved just slightly over $2 million. So CIP items for next year are going to total about $300,000, and those will come from those reserve funds, and they're concrete replacement, door replacements, mobile data terminal replacements, HVAC, floor drains. So total budget authority, $9,759,590, of which $793 is debt service payments. And then we look at the reserve fund balance. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I've listened to the conversation this morning. And I don't know the exact percentage of Fire District 2 reserves right now. They're probably between 25 and 30%. But that's the Fire District savings account, and it has to fund our CIP. So this year alone, there'll probably be $400,000 in expenses come from that. Next year, there'll be $300,000. Future growth in Spring Hill, we are anticipating that we're going to need another facility. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. So those funds will come from that as well. So that explains why Fire District 2 has a strong reserve account right now, because we anticipate spending from that in the future moving forward. So let me talk about the key points here. So next year marks the third year for Fire District 2 stop providing the fire service. It remains a taxing entity, still owns the fire trucks, the fire station, still does a budget. But the fire service is now contracted out with Overland Park and Fire District 1. So next year will be the third year. The Overland Park agreement is a 10-year term. The Fire District 1 agreement was written as a short-term stopgap until another action occurred, such as a merger or consolidation between 2 and 1. If that action does not occur, this contract's going to need to be amended. Okay, accomplishments. I believe Fire District 2 is sitting in a very good financial position because of the proper financial management. It does have strong reserves, but as I indicated earlier, a lot of those will be spent down in the next few months and next year. And I should also just remind everybody, we did take some debt service reserve funds on a 2015 bond issue, and we're making extra principal payment for next year with those extra reserve funds. We ordered a new fleet in January 2022. I'm glad we did when we did. We got a bond rate of about 1.5%. Within 6 months after these trucks were ordered, about $3.5 million worth of fire trucks, the price went through the roof. A truck that we were ordering that cost $800,000 then is now about $1.05 million. A ladder truck was about $1.05 million, is now $1.5 million. So we saved literally about $1 million ordering when we did and doing that bond issue when we did, or we'd be paying higher interest rates for that as well. The good news is that because of the CIP plan that's been put in place, because of the transition, we've been able to do some of these things. And when the new fleet comes in March, 91% of the fire district fleet is going to be under 3 years old. So we're very happy about that. Let me talk for a minute about ISO. Now this is a little open-ended discussion because since our transition, we haven't had formal correspondence with the Insurance Services Office yet on the formal rating. Fire District 2 was an ISO Class 2 for properties within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant within 5 road miles of a fire station. And if there was no fire hydrants, an ISO Class 4. Well, that determines the insurance rate people pay. So 2's about as good as we're going to get. And there's not a whole lot of fire departments in the state of Kansas out of 500 that are a 2. I don't remember the exact number, but we're happy that we reached a 2. We can't reach a 1 simply because we serve areas that are rural with no fire hydrants. One of the things that I'm hopefully that I come before you soon is that the area that is now under contract with Overland Park, because Overland Park is a Class 1, the areas that they will respond to that are within 1,000 feet, we anticipate that that area is going to go from a 2 to a 1. We haven't got that formally yet, but that's what we're anticipating in the near future. So let me talk for a minute about challenges. One of the big challenges we have right now is space limitations at the Spring Hill Fire Station. We have an apparatus bay that's become overcrowded with supplemental equipment that we didn't have when we built the fire station. Boats, ATVs, things of that nature. And we now have 9 people at that building assigned 24/7, including the 2-person crew with Johnson County Med-Act. So we're kind of tight quarters in that building, but the apparatus bay is posing a little bit of a safety concern because of so much congestion. So one of the things that we plan to do, and this will be before you in the near future, is we want to build a storage building on Fire District property adjacent to the station for reserve apparatus, supplemental equipment. I'm in the middle of identifying that cost now in a site development plan with Phelps Engineering. So that'll come before you in the near future. Once again, that funding will come from Fire District Reserve funds. Another challenge, and I should state that I met with Spring Hill's governing body last Thursday night and appreciate Councilwoman North being here today, but I talked to the governing body of Spring Hill about the 2024 agreement with Fire District 2. I'm hopeful that that's the last agreement with Fire District 2 and that the governing body elects to join Fire District 2. So those discussions are underway, and hopefully that would occur where in 2025 we would end up having no contract and the entire city would be under Fire District 2. So the contractual relationship with District 1 is somewhat of a challenge, as I mentioned earlier, because when it was written, it was only intended to be in place 2 or 3 years. It wasn't intended as a long-term document. So if no structural change to Fire District 2 is done through merger consolidation administratively, operationally it's already occurred. If that's not going to occur, then the contract, I would recommend, needs to be amended sometime in the next several months so it's in place prior to the 2025 budget. One of the other challenges is the growth of Spring Hill. Spring Hill is growing to the north in areas that we did not anticipate they would grow. We anticipated, 10 years ago that those would land in Olathe. We're happy they're going to Spring Hill, but it puts a responsibility on Fire District 2 as that area develops to increase, to be able to service that better than we are now. It is a long response time to some of those areas now. They're not hitting the mark on their performance measures. So that's something we have on the radar about what we can do about that. I've talked with District 1 personnel. I've talked to City of Spring Hill personnel about the possibility of a satellite or small fire station on the north end of Spring Hill. Once again, that's another reason Fire District 2's reserve funds are strong, and that's what they would be used to help fund as well. So while we're talking about the times, I just wanted to show you here now, really have 2 different districts here. We have east and west of Lackman Road. So the district west of Lackman Road served by District 1. The City of Spring Hill contract area, you're seeing the response times and what we call the turnout time. That's the time it takes to get in the truck and the wheels in motion out the door. So the average for all calls is 5 minutes and 20 seconds in the contract area. And then you look at the unincorporated area, and it's much higher. And there's not many calls in some of this area, but the calls that are there, if they're in the northwest or north central portion of the district, there's a lengthy response time, and these numbers aren't hitting the mark. but a station in the north end of the city would lower these numbers and get them where we need them to be. So then you look at the area of Spring Hill that's in the fire district, which is about half of the city, and we've got an all-call average of 5 minutes 56. So then you look at the Overland Park area. Now, it's not as big of a geographic area, and it's served by 2 fire stations. So they're looking at, 90th percentile, and the fire calls 734, and EMS calls 811, but their average is 501 and 449. So happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Chief Francis, I know that that's not your official title, but that's how I know you. What is the mill levy in the city of Spring Hill?
Okay, the city where Fire District 2, the portion of the city that is within Fire District number 2, Fire District number 2 assesses the fire district's general fund and debt service levy, which next year would be 15.511. The city in the area that's under contract, which would be 1 square mile from Lone Elm Road to Woodland Road to Lone Elm, county line to 207th Street to county line, and everything in Miami County that's in the city assesses their own fire service levy. That levy is 13 point something. I don't know that that'd probably take me a few minutes to find it exactly, but it's 13 point something. Now, our contract is based now, so the city assessed valuation of the contract area times Fire District 2's general fund tax levy, which is proposed 13.878. That generates approximately $1,114,000 for next year. The only difference that we would be lacking is motor vehicle taxes. If the city were to come into the district and join Fire District 2, then the fire district assesses its levy in that area.
Would be consistent.
Yes. The only difference would be the citizens of Spring Hill, if they join the district now, they wouldn't be paying for bond debt that already exists.
Okay, so it would be a little bit less than the 15?
It'd be slightly less.
All right, so tell me again, what part of the city is actually in District 2 and is not a contract area?
Can you restate that?
There's part of Spring Hill that is just in District 2 and not in the contract area.
Okay. So primarily the new growth areas in the city are in Fire District 2, and they're north of 207th Street, or they are north of county line, west of Lone Elm Road. It gets very complicated because the growth is occurring around the city and around the contract area.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think that was, I just wanted clarification because Commissioner, City Councilwoman North is here, and we had been discussing this and trying to come, I was a little hazy on how this all worked. And the 13.5 mils, that is also for the Miami County contract area, correct?
So Miami County Fire District 2, which is outside the city of Spring Hill, all unincorporated north central Miami County, they have their own mill levy to pay the Fire District 2 contract with them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chief Francis. I think you've gone over this budget like maybe 4 or 5 times, so great job. I do want to say, Spring Hill is one of the fastest growing communities, and I applaud the council person being here and also the city manager and that entire council, because you've got one of the fastest growing city, hardly any infrastructure that was completed, so there's going to be a huge task ahead. The challenges is to provide services, whether it be, fire, with the anticipation of the development moving. I hope as that happens, those developers work with fire stations and schools to help provide those along with the library, being able to provide those services for people in the interim. I appreciate all your work, and I know the city council is going to have a lot of challenges coming up. Mr. Chair, I don't know if you're ready. I have a motion. I know we've heard this several times during agenda review, and it's very thorough.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow Commissioner Ashcraft to ask his questions, then we'll come back to you for the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, how do we assure Commissioner O'Hara that we're getting value out of that $3 million?
That's a good question. How do we assure that? We assure that our ISO is maintained, our ISO rating is maintained, our response times are maintained. Excuse me. We're not having substantial insurance losses in the district. That's one measurable outcome. Right now, the response times are good. They're no different than they were when Fire District 2 operated the fire department. The response is coming from the same location, and a lot of times the same people on the same fire trucks are simply wearing a different uniform.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Allenbrand, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, just to clarify a little bit, it is an entanglement, so to speak, because you also not only have Spring Hill schools, you also have Olathe schools and then the unincorporated area. So there's a lot of movement in fire too. But thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 budgets for Johnson County Fire District Number 2 and adopt resolution number 070-23.
Commissioner O'Hara seconds.
Moved by Allenbrand, seconded by O'Hara. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Yes, 7 votes in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That's correct.
Okay, matter passes. We're going to take a brief recess. We're not going to take a full lunch break. There are too many people here who have signed up to speak on various topics. We owe it to them to be diligent. We are going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back here at 12:28. Thank you all very much for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.